Hello, this is lesson 2 of our final unit on intermolecular forces. This lesson is very short, it's about liquids. I'll give you like a little bit of an overview, and then I have an additional video for you to watch where another teacher kind of fleshes out the definitions a little bit more, and that will correlate to the notes 2 of 4 document. So this is my notes, lesson 2, and then you'll see a different one that has for notes 2 of 4. All right, so stuff to remember about liquids, they have low compressibility. So what that means is if I had that magical container with a movable piston and I had a gas in that container, I could obviously easily push that piston down because the gas particles are very far apart from one another and I can push them closer together. But with liquids, they are not compressible. So if I had that container with a movable piston and pulled back, let's just say I had like a medical syringe and I pulled back and filled it with a liquid and plugged the end of it, I would not be able to push that plunger down because the particles are already touching each other. They do not have rigidity, they have high density compared to gases, they're able to flow. A couple of vocabulary terms here: capillary action. That's spontaneous rising of a liquid in a narrow tube. That's due to two different things. You do need to know these definitions of cohesive forces and adhesive forces. Cohesive means that the substance connects to other molecules of the same substance. So that's where your intermolecular forces come into play. So like a water molecule stuck to another water molecule through hydrogen bonding, that would be a cohesive force. Whereas if I have adhesive forces, and that's another factor that's at play with capillary action, adhesive forces are a particular molecule, like the liquid molecule that's stuck to the wall of the container. Okay, so think about like adhesive tape. It's the tape sticks to other stuff. Okay, cohesive holds that substance within itself through intermolecular forces. Another characteristic of liquids is surface tension. So surface tension is, the force of attraction for molecules. It's due to cohesive forces. So the molecules attracting to one another and kind of form like a film on the surface. So like the classic thing is like this water strider bug. It's unable to break through the surface tension of the water because of the way its weight is distributed. Surface, I don't know what the, okay. So surface tension, also like if you were to do like the, 7th grade, I put drops of water on a penny, look, I'm a scientist. It's basically how the liquid is reducing its surface area. So those molecules are kind of all pulling towards a center point. That's why things like water especially will bead up on the surface. Because those molecules are pulling so strongly towards each other, and like these molecules that are on the surface are just pulled together with each other and then pulled towards the center, it reduces the surface area and prevents all those molecules from just spreading out into like this flat puddle. For the capillary action, this is why you have a meniscus when you look at like a graduated cylinder. The narrower the tube, the more pronounced the meniscus will be. Those adhesive forces drawing the molecules up the sides will be more pronounced than a wider tube. That's why like if you had a glass of water and looked at it from the side, you really wouldn't notice a meniscus. And then if you had various graduated cylinders, let's say you had a 10 milliliter graduated cylinder, which is quite narrow, and then a 50 milliliter graduated cylinder, which is wider, and then 100, the meniscus would be most pronounced in the narrowest tube. There are tubes called capillary tubes that are super, super narrow. If you've ever had blood drawn and the phlebotomist takes like a tiny little plastic tube to draw a drop of blood into it to put into a testing, a test tube or whatever, that's called a capillary tube. They're very, very narrow. So in thinking also in terms of like plants and how like the xylem and phloem tissue in a plant that allows for water to travel up through the roots and nutrients to travel down from the leaves into the roots, those tubes are very, very narrow. An easy example of this would be celery. Like the stringy part, like the celery stalk is very stringy. You could peel it apart. That's all vascular tissue. It's very, very narrow, and it allows the waters to be drawn up rapidly and the nutrients to be pushed down rapidly from the leaves into the stem, into the roots. Mercury actually has like a reverse meniscus. If you had a capillary tube with mercury in it, it would be like bubbled up rather than in a depressed one. Another characteristic of liquids is viscosity. So all liquids are fluids, which means that the particles have the ability to flow. Viscosity is resistance to flow. So think like the thickness of a liquid. So comparing something like water versus oil versus syrup. Okay, so syrup would have a high viscosity. Oil would kind of be in the middle of these three, and water would have a low viscosity. It flows easily. Glycerin, which is also known as glycerol, is a liquid that has a high viscosity. If a substance has high viscosity, that would mean typically that it has stronger intermolecular forces. It's resisting movement because the molecules are drawn to each other. You can reduce viscosity by increasing the temperature, because if you increase the temperature of the liquid, the particles would be moving faster. It would decrease their forces of attraction to each other. When you talk about like petroleum products, like different types of gasoline, like the gas station, what's that like anymore? Different types of gasoline, we'll talk about using like high viscosity or low viscosity oils. And I don't know how cars work. It's magic. I'd push a button and my car goes vroom vroom. But anyways, that's just like a short intro to some vocabulary with liquids. The other video that I posted about liquids on Edpuzzle, that goes along with notes 2 of 4, and that will give you a little more in-depth look at these properties.